Awesome. Okay. So, and then just something to preface, this is like another one of our like test runs to see how this new format works. But this time we're going to try and make it through towards the end. So kind of run it like the most like a normal conversation as possible. And then at the end, we can all talk about like where we think it could be improved or changed or whatever. So yeah, but basically how to participate is Nearpod. You guys already got that first step. You join the Nearpod. And then you can use the discussion board. So Verta has actually pre-prepared questions for you guys to answer. And so you'll answer those questions using the discussion board on the Nearpod, and it will prompt you to give your answer at a certain time. And then after that will be follow-ups, and she can either ask you a follow-up question or you can ask her a follow-up question and indicate that you want to in the Zoom. And then we can, have you unmute and start the conversation. The whole point of this is to go into conversations from these questions and have an experience where everyone learns from each other. So, any questions about that? All right. All right, so Verta, if you want to go ahead and read off your icebreaker.
So you can choose one, and if you're really savvy and quick with your phone, you can do both. So find the most interesting yet useful app on your phone and share it with the group. Or pull up your photos, find the third most recent, if you're brave enough to just do that, and send it in the Zoom chat. Well, you don't have to send it in the Zoom chat. You can maybe hold it up, because I don't know how you would do that. And share the story of the photo on the discussion board. If it's too personal, you can choose your fourth or your fifth, but don't go past the fifth photo. So one of those two things, and so we're just going to chat it up about those things. For me, I'll start with the useful app. Right now, actually, it's my Repost app, and it's just called Repost for Instagram, because I don't know, about 2 months ago, I had taken a little bit of break from social media. Maybe it was longer than that ago. And then I just started feeling the need to make sure that people were educated on the things that were happening with regard to Black Lives Matter, with regard to anti-racism, with regard to justice in America in an informed way. So I just started sharing a lot of the resources and people that I look to learn from. So the Repost app is really great because it allows you to give credit where credit is due, which is something we should do on all of our social platforms if we're sharing other people's things. And it was just really easy. So that's the most useful app for me right now. Oh, wait, let me see what my third recent photo is. So because I chose a photo thing, I don't know how people would share that on the board.
I'm not really sure either. I guess you could hold it up.
You can hold it up to the screen.
Yeah.
1, 2. Wait, let me see.
Hey, Abigail, would you mind clicking that box that has like the orange dot on it so you can like approve the answers?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Drasana. Let me see. There's my photo. I don't think, yeah, there it is. It's dog food. And as I shared, I have a pandemic puppy who has stomach issues. So I'm trying to figure out foods that he likes. And so I'll put like one food on one side and the other food. Oh, I love CoStar. Sorry. Yes, I have that. You have to friend me so that, we can see what's going on in each other's astrological lives. I'm an Aquarius. As is Drasana.
I support that. Virgos go along with Aquariuses, so.
Nice. Oh, and so the food is like, I was told by a vet to put like the food down and then see which one your pet goes to, and so that you can really find out, do they really like this, or are they just eating it because you put it there, because this vet believes that your dog should love their food. So that's what the photo was. Anyone else sharing a photo or an app?
I can share a photo. Like, let me know if you guys can see this, but here is my third recent photo on my camera roll. It's from my AP Environmental Science lab today. We had to demonstrate watersheds, except we're at home because we're doing virtual learning. So each of us had a bucket in our room and we had to like crumple up paper and demonstrate how pollution can get into water sources. in the middle of class in my room with like a watering can and a bucket of crumpled paper. So yeah, that's my most recent photo.
I love it.
Okay. So if anyone else wants to share any photos, we could have Abigail stop screen sharing for a minute. So if anyone else wants to, just let us know.
Yeah, I have a photo super quick.
Okay.
Okay, great. Now I can see everyone. So who else was, who was about to, Noor, were you, I can't, yeah. Were you going to share a photo?
Yeah, yesterday I don't know if you will be able to see this.
Just put it a little closer to the camera and I think the light will adjust. Yep, there you are.
Yesterday I had my first like speech practice of the year, and I was like so drained that I got home and it was so satisfying. And my mom took a picture of me like on my way in because she like has a whole photo book of like first moments and stuff. And so it's a cool it's a cool way to start off the season, even though like it looks really different. But yeah.
Love it. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, did anyone else share their apps, and then we can move on? First, for me, I don't know, icebreakers or just kind of like warming yourself up into the space is really important. Another thing that I always love everyone to do these days is to take themselves off of mute so we can hear all the things that are happening in their background, so you don't have to feel any kind of way about it. We're all in our homes and in spaces that we probably wouldn't even invite other people to normally. So welcome to my living room table. I'm sorry, dining room table. I live in New York, so living room, dining room is all the same thing. To my dining room table. And Spotify, and what was the other one? Learn Python. It acts a lot like, I don't know anything of what that means, Crystal. So I'm learning something right now. What is Python?
Oh, Python is a programming language, and also I don't know if it was like the language that I was typing in, but when I said it acts a lot like Duolingo. You know how Duolingo has a placement test at the top, and then it branches out into like different types of little bubbles where you gain vocabulary. It's the same for the app, where it goes from the placement test to variables and the data types and control flows. So it's a language, and the app treats it like one, but I don't know if they were trying to imitate Duolingo, but it does look a lot like it.
Cool. Love it. Well, thanks for sharing, everybody. Oh, I see another one coming up on the board. Do not be ashamed to admit it. Is this new, or is this always the case?
No, I've always used Twitter to like aggregate my news, basically, and that's like mostly where I read from to find articles, because of the people that I followed on there to trust. But I'd say in the last like couple of weeks, as the pace of the news has accelerated so much, I've just found myself, up at 5 a.m. scrolling, or staying up till 1 or 2 scrolling, because there's just so much to keep up on.
Yeah, awesome. I'll need a lesson on how to use Twitter to aggregate my news. Thanks for sharing, everyone. Thanks for participating. We'll move on to the next slide. I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying that or not.
No.
I'm like, or is that you, Madison? I don't know.
No, it's okay. It's okay. And Abigail, you can click apply, and then click no. Awesome.
So my first question for the group is, how do you define love?
It should be interesting.
That would start with something really light. Okay. truly putting someone before yourself in every way, unconditional support and warmth, caring about someone in a really deep and meaningful way, putting someone else's needs above your own, as less of an emotion. It just started bouncing. As less of an emotion and more of a state of being. Oh, the answer. Putting someone else. Okay. Ooh. I would heart all of these. I mean, you all can show some love for any that maybe resonate for you. Does anyone want to share more than what they typed? Love is cherishing something or someone for everything that they are, and it is. Does anyone want to share more than what they typed? I'm big on talking, so it's like, oh, you know, I can also sit in silence for super long times, and then that becomes really awkward on a Zoom. So if anyone wants to share, that would be great. If not, that's cool too. I'm going to put up a definition of love that has come to me later, like in the last 3 years. Oh, something that can shape shift in the beneficial way. Like that. I mean, there's so much that I want to hear. First of all, I have a question about what you mean by shape shifting, Crystal. I'm going to say the more questions that I have, you can answer them or not. So I'm really curious about that. I was also really curious about, what was it? Unconditional support and warmth, like what warmth means in that instance, and the answer. Those were ones that made me have more questions. So I'm just going to name that. You do not have to answer, but if you want to, that would be awesome.
I can talk about mine a little bit more. So, like, love for me, just like if you say the word love, like sometimes words have like feelings, I guess, like associated with them, like beyond their emotion. So, like for me, it just feels like warmth. Like it just feels like something that like inside of you just feels like warm and good. And I don't know if that's just like coming from like a cartoon size like version of love, because like in the movies it always like glows red when like, you know, like people are in love. But I don't know, for me it just reminds me of like warmth. And then also just the fact that like love is unconditional. There's no like boundaries to love. There's nothing that would like take love away. It's just always there, like when like people do love you.
Thank you so much. I think the warmth part is that there are feelings. Our body has an emotion to love. I mean, has a response to love. And so a lot of times we're cut off from what we feel. And it could be warmth for someone. Someone else might describe it differently. But it's really important to kind of just pay attention to what your body's doing when you're in situations or in moments. And sometimes we think that we're in a loving moment, but our chest feels tight. But we're like, oh, I really like this person. But then you're like, well, why does my chest feel so tight? Or my shoulders get really tight. Or I get a little bit, I think there are butterflies in my stomach, or do I actually have an upset stomach? So it's really important to pay attention to that. So I appreciate you naming that it's a response that your body's having. Does anyone else want to share anything before I put up the definition of love that I use?
For shape shifting, on the previous question, for me this is also something that is like an open. I give people like an open definition to it, just so that I get to know what they think of shape shifting. But for me, it's sort of like love gives you the ability to open your mind to things, because love isn't something that you're like, oh, okay, I love this person. Sometimes it's just something you feel when you don't even want to. Like, let's say you suddenly like fall in love with chess. I'm just saying that because I actually really, really love chess. And I was like, my brother forced me into like playing chess because he wanted a chess player. And I was like, oh, I don't want to play chess. But also this game, I don't know why I love it so much. And it actually led me to join my school's chess club. And I found such a supportive community. And it really changed me. It shape-shifted me, I would say. And so love gives you the ability to change your perspective and change who you are.
What I love about that is it puts love as a verb and not a noun, right? And so it's something that you can do, it's something that you can be, and that's really important. And I think that we do live in a society where there's always these romantic rom-coms, which I love, or movies about love or things like that, but it gives us very like, oh, it's just a feeling, and that's a part of it, but it's also an action, and so actively doing it, it's something that you should actively be engaged with. So can you put up the next slide for me, Madison? So this is from Bell Hooks. The book is all about love, and she defines love as the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own, or, and I would say or another's spiritual growth. Love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely, both an intention and an action. And it gives us the choice to do it or not, right? And so you choose it. And I'm curious if there are any reactions to this definition. I don't think that there's one right definition. That's why, I mean, that's a theme in all of my questions. I just think it's important for me that everyone understand love as an action. In my work and the things that I do, well, first of all, just who I am. I'm a loving person. I grew up, I cry all the time. I was like, I feel a lot. And that's not always seen as a good thing, but I've chosen to embrace it in my life. And it's part of why I say that I'm all love. I'm loving, I'm caring, I love all of those things, but not in a weak way. I think people see love as a weakness. So I'm curious what you think, how this definition either resonates for you or any questions you have based on this definition.
I think it's really cool to see it, the one phrase in there, love is as love does. I've never heard it put that way, but it also makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me think of like the cliche, like actions speak louder than words, like how important actions are in like telling like love and just like your relationship with someone.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I think that was interesting, Verta, is like everyone's definition talked about other people but not themselves, and this says like nurturing's one own, and like I see that in myself for sure. Like my mind didn't go there, and so we all need to make sure our minds are going to ourselves too.
Yes, that it is. Yes, loving thyself is so vital, and we often put it outside of ourselves, and that can be really draining. I think that you all are civic superheroes, and it's a very giving thing to want to do civic things, but you also can't deny yourself your own love as well as the love that other people have. The other person that Che Guevara has a saying about the revolution, being revolutionary is an act of love, because revolutionaries are doing things from a loving place, even if those things turn out to be protests or things that people see as not peaceful. Love doesn't have to be peaceful. Love is a shapeshifter, as was already said. It doesn't have to look one way. So that, anyone else, any other reactions to that definition?
I mean, I would just say something like, this makes me realize that we don't really talk, like we talk about love, but we don't really talk about love a lot. Like we talk about like, obviously like there's so many like love stories and love songs in our culture, but it's like, I don't think I've ever sat down with someone and actually talked about like what love actually means. I mean, I've obviously thought about it, but I mean, this is just really cool. This is just really cool to me already. Like I'm just, wow.
Yeah, it's not a conversation we have enough.
Wait, you never took AP Love?
No, I can't say that I did.
I scored a 2, but
But we should have an AP Love course. Like, I really think that it's important because when you can't name a thing, when you can't define a thing, then you can't actually, it's harder to achieve that thing, whether it's for yourself or for others. And you start to do what you think someone wants or what you think it means for love, and that without the conversation, you'll never know. And the other thing is, to me, love, people will say that they love their country or they love this this thing, this idea, without really understanding, is it really nurturing you or another person's spiritual growth, right? Because If it's not, is it really love? Or is it an obsession? Or is it just because you think it's the right thing? Are you doing it for other people? So I just think everyone should talk about love, and not just love in the, oh my gosh, I saw that super cool movie where those people fell in love type of love. That love's good too, but there's so many different kinds of love. We just talked about the love of chess, right? And things that we love. What are some things that people love that have nothing to do with another person? Think about it. Actually, I think I have a question that talks about that. So anyway, next question. Oh, food. Woo, yeah. I love to eat so much. It's a problem. How do you define rage? How do you define rage?
The opposite.
Well, if it's the opposite. Anger that takes shape both in and outside of yourself, an energy and a fuel. I do love this, the Nearpod that you chose. I love it so much.
I'm glad.
Natural human resource that can be channeled into love and action. All right, Jane Maloney.
I was trying to figure out who that was for a second, but I was like, oh, Gary.
Willingness to destroy. Ooh, I'm gonna want to hear more about all of these already. Loss, frustration, grief, intense feelings of anger from a place of hurt. Does anyone want to share some more about about what they wrote?
I can start off. So like normally when you think of rage, again, I don't know why it keeps going back to the movies, but like it's like depicted as like this like blind rage, or like people are just like in this mode and they're like blinded by this feeling of anger. But what it normally stems down to is also like coming from a place of hurt, because normal things don't like spur you into such a feeling of anger unless it's personal, or like unless it hurts you a lot. So I think of rage as something that affects you like deep down, or something that someone did or said that really hurt you, and so like you're expressing that as like intense feelings of anger or rage.
Thank you.
And I think
I go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, on Miriam's note of like the movies, I think it's always depicted as like this horrible, like you're going on like a rampage and you're just like destroying things because you're upset about something. But and it definitely can be that, but I think the beauty of it is that it's like coupled with other emotions and other like feelings. So it's not necessarily something that's always depicted as negative. It's something that like fuels your fire, or like drives you to do something even better.
Yeah. I think that the majority, go ahead, does anyone else want to say something? Okay. Willingness to destroy. I got to hear about this, Crystal. Maybe you want to type about it if you don't want to put you on the spot to speak, but I really need to know more.
No, you're good. I tried not to I tried to not read out the other answers before answering myself. A willingness to destroy, that's more like, so my, kind of outing my family, but my entire family has anger issues. And each time somebody would get angry, somebody else would end up getting hurt. So whenever I think about rage, that's what I think about, since, yeah, it's more like a personal definition, since that's what I've seen firsthand.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's important to have personal definitions and touch points for where rage or anger, and I don't see them necessarily always as synonymous, right, can find themselves. And so I had to go through a lot of therapy to start to name emotions in my later in life, in my like late 20s. And one of the emotions that I was taught to repress was rage and anger. I was taught that, you don't show it, right? That it's not productive. And I fully disagree with that as an adult woman. I think that someone said, takes shape, anger that takes shape both in and outside of yourself, right? You get to define the shape that it takes, right? But to take it away means that you're denying an emotion that you have, right? And so there was someone else that said something, oh, G-Money, a natural human resource that can be channeled into love and action, right? So like, how do you use it? First of all, you have to be able to name it. And so what you said, Crystal, about your own personal definition is really important, because you can name why that is the definition for you. But it's also why we have to think about why or how movies and the media depict them. And I'll say very specifically for women and for Black women, right? And why would someone want you to not have your rage is something to think about. So can you put up the next slide? I don't remember what I put here. Oh, okay, this is from Audre Lorde. And it states, hold on, it says my internet connection is unstable, so it's blocking what, there it is. Every woman has a well-stocked arsenal of anger, potentially useful against those oppressions, personal and institutional, which brought the anger into being. Anger is loaded with information and energy. Anger helps you determine your boundaries and your values. That's a Verta quote. It's not really, I don't know if I quote myself, but that's what it made me think of. So reactions, resonance, how this maybe connects to what you already wrote.
That's like what Nora said at the end. The anger is loaded with information and energy. I don't remember exactly what she said, but I remember it was along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna like say the same thing, that like the fact that it's loaded with information and energy also like really resonates, I think, with like myself and a lot of us in terms of like our own personal mission for like why we're doing the kind of work that we do, because if we weren't passionate about it, then like we wouldn't be here. And like although we got like really angry about the state of things, that we're channeling that into like doing a lot of work to hopefully change it. So I like that she says like it's loaded with information and energy, because we bring that like and that's kind of I think what makes us successful, because you know we are really passionate about changing the things that made us angry with this.
That's the bus outside. Anyone else?
I think the information part is key, just because I know.
Can you say that a little bit? Can you say that a little bit louder? I have a bus in the background.
No,
it's
you're
outside
okay.
of my house, but it feels like it's inside. Yeah.
I was just saying I think that what's important about Audre Lorde's quote is she says that anger is loaded with information. And I think that's important just because knowing like why you have rage is important. Just not necessarily to like prove to other people that like what you're thinking is valid, but almost to disprove what they already think about like preconceived connotation or preconceived notions of like you're angry about XYZ, but it's not necessarily founded. So it kind of gives you purpose for like what you have rage about, and it like it could be a motivating factor for other people too.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
I also kind of want to like spin off what Nora said about this idea of like the importance of information, because I think that's like key in giving the rage direction so it can turn into all those other really important and more positive things.
Mm-hmm.
So, what everyone said was so good. I feel like, I've learned that like discomfort, anger, is a sign that the system is off, right? I think we are naturally this like we're taught just a lot of really wrong things, that we're super disconnected from the environment and, you know, self-made, this idea of the self-made individual. I need to be independent from the environment. And people are taught that they're crazy if they're mad, right? Mm-hmm. And there's just a lot of natural wisdom that people have when something's off, right? Something's not sustainable, right? In the setup between different people within a system, right? A family or a school, right? We get sent to the principal's office when we speak out against something about how the school's structured. So I think we're just generally gaslighted to not believe that there's information that makes sense. So I guess just as soon as I started to just listen to my anger about things, I was able to just start seeing things more clearly.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think what that makes me think of is anger has helped me determine my boundaries and my values. Because when something causes like just a lot of rage for me, then it means that it has hit a nerve. And why is that thing causing me to be there? And in relationships, like if I get really mad at someone else, it's because they've kind of touched on a boundary for me that maybe I need to define or that I didn't define. That's why I'm getting so angry. And then just in the world, right? I feel like, again, just like we don't talk about love and we don't talk about like that we exist as connected human beings because of that desire to have love for ourselves and be loved as well as express it for others, the same way that we don't talk about rage appropriately and how it can be channeled and like moved into such positive things if we have the opportunity to sit down and talk about it and just say like, that just really made me mad. I'm so angry at what's happening. And part of my love for CU in general, but all of you kids that are engaged with it, is because it's about that. Things that get you really angry, quite honestly, are the things that move you to take action. So does anybody else have anything they want to say before I go to the next question?
Yeah, it's something that you said in there. It really makes me think something that I heard a couple weeks ago. It was like, just talking about kind of like how we portray like rage and anger and like letting ourselves get mad. It's like someone made the comparison. It's like, you know, we let ourselves get like we get angry sometimes. So like, why don't we let kids get angry? And like, because when kids get angry, it's like, you know, stop crying, stop throwing a fit. And I never thought of it like that. But it's like from such a young age, we're always like pushing the ideology that like you can't ever be like upset. So.
Yep. Yep, and something that I've reclaimed, and I always speak from my own existence, right? I seek to learn so much about how other people experience life, love, rage, all of the things in the world. And I come to spaces as Verta, a Black woman. And angry Black woman has been a trope that's out there forever. And so when people say it to me, I'll be like, yes, I am angry. What's wrong with that? Like, shouldn't I be? Like, and then I'll say, why aren't you angry? Because the things that make me angry, right, are injustices, or seeing another hashtag erected in the universe about someone dying. Yeah, I'm angry. I'm really, really angry. And my question to other people when they put that on me is, why aren't you angry? And it's something that I've thought a lot about, how that's necessary to kind of claim those things. And then I say it from a space that I use this one because it's not that men don't have rage and anger and shouldn't be able to channel it appropriately, but I feel that women are often told not to be angry. And so, or it's seen as different, like you're difficult, you're all these things, but it's about claiming it. Okay, anyone else before we move to the next slide? How do love and rage coexist for you, or in the world, or both?
I feel like we've already kind of started to touch on this.
Exactly. That means I built the questions appropriately.
Yeah. I'm interested to see this.
Passion. The intersection of love and rage, passion. You need to understand, experience each to value the importance of the other. I'm going to make you say more about that while you're still with us, Jasana. I'm preparing you. The moments where I'm most at rage are always connected to the things that I love. Me too. Same. Product and reactant. Yes, with a double arrow in the middle. Ooh, Crystal, you're so going to have to say more about this. These are like science people. These people that took AP courses. Probably not even science, but what I'm saying, I don't know. You're going to say more about that, Crystal. They feel complementary. Isn't that fascinating? Only because I think people would not, a lot of people don't think that caring. So amazing. Okay, Jasana, do you want to say more about that one? I see some love to that passion intersection. I see it. It makes me think of a Venn diagram, and in the middle is that. And Crystal, you have to say more. So, Jasana?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, like, I feel like I didn't understand, or like as I've grown as a human, I've grown to appreciate both of those emotions by understanding the other. So when I've been in moments of extreme rage, it makes you understand why love is as important, as opposed to just like taking it for granted when you're, happy. And then vice versa, seeing yourself, like what comes out of rage, at like to everyone's point, like what like amazing things can come out of you in that state sometimes. So experiencing the other has made me appreciate sometimes the whiplash that can occur, and know that I will get through it one way or the other.
Yeah. And there's an allowing yourself to experience it, right? Like I imagine, because I think that's the whole thing about naming it, being in touch with how your body's feeling or what's happening for you. It's actually allowing yourself to feel it. Even though society may try to take that away. Crystal, I would love to hear from you, and then the other people as well.
Yeah, traditionally in chemistry, at least like where I'm taught, whenever it comes to products and reactants has an arrow leading towards the products. And it wasn't until last year that I learned about the double arrow, where it's like products can become reactants, can go back to being reactants, and then reactants can continue being products. And I was like, what? They can go hand in hand? And so this is just like a little bit of the science in me, just looking at it, because I'm also doing chemistry homework.
I love it.
But yeah, it reminds me of that also, because whenever you're looking at the arrow on top of it, if you're looking at the equation, it traditionally has, the something that might have led to the reaction, which usually you would see heat, but for this, it might be something else, like something happened in your life that would lead you converting love to anger or anger to love.
Yeah. Thank you for that. See, I love these types of conversations. I just love the way people's brains work, and the fact that just how that makes sense to me now. But when that popped up, why I'm asking you to talk about it, because I was like, I have no idea. And it makes so much sense. G Money put, people feel tremendous rage when things they love are threatened, underappreciated, or destroyed. Anybody else want to say anything about what they put up, and or what anyone else put, like what it brought up for you?
Nora, are you sure you don't want to comment on Crystal's science thing?
I was gonna say, there's this, so I could be wrong, but like, I think it's like weak acids and weak bases, they're weak because they don't fully dissolve in whatever they're being mixed with. And so the whole double arrow represents a state of equilibrium, because at a certain point you get equal reactants and equal products. And so I think it's cool to like use that metaphor to be like, one fuels the other, and they coexist because they create one another. But at a certain point, it's not that it settles, but like at a certain point you get the right amount of each, where like the reaction has happened and it's done. And at that point, like, I think to translate it back into like this real life metaphor, you've kind of found your passion and like that kind of intersection of love and rage.
No, that's beautiful. Oh my gosh. I love that we're adding science into this.
Well, it's all connected. I mean, it's all connected. So I love it too. Part of, and what it makes me think of is, for me, when I say all love with appropriate doses of rage, appropriate is subjective, right? There's times where I'm like really, really full of more rage. Sometimes it's less, but this whole like kind of ebb and flow is what it's making me think of, right? So the product reactant and that, but it's always love, at least for me. And I think that actually in general it is, right? It's when you have an imbalance and when you're not really talking about or acknowledging the loving place that we're all rooted in, that I think stuff gets like really wonky. Anyone else before we go to the next slide? I don't even remember what I put on the next slide, so we'll see. I think it all flows, but does anybody want to say anything before I pop that up? Okay, you can say something even after it comes up. Let's see what I put on there. This is me being so. James Baldwin, neither love nor terror makes one blind. Indifference makes one blind. Reactions to that, and or how it connects to how love and rage can coexist. Aren't they?
Okay, so like my definition from before was about caring, and like indifference for me is like you don't care at all, which is like the worst thing that you can possibly do, because if you're coming from a place of show that you love something, and like if you're like having feelings of terror or rage, like you care so much that you're expressing it in that way. But when you're indifferent, I mean, you're kind of like untouchable because you just don't care at all, and in that sense you're just kind of like detached from the human experience, so like you don't care about everything else that's going on in the world. So yeah, when he said like indifference makes one blind, that really resonated with me. I was like, yeah, like that is, I think, like the worst problem to have.
Yeah.
And just to kind of build on that, what you said, Mario, I'm like, sometimes like I find like when I get angry or like, you know, when I get rage, it's like it can either go to love or it can go to indifference, and it gets really like it's not good when your rage makes you not care. Like it's really bad. But
yeah, and yeah. And I'm not going to judge it yet as good or bad. It is. And then the question is, what do you do when it happens, right? Because I think it's hard to we can't dismiss that we feel all those things, right? Like, so what is it that you do when you get to that place of indifference? And I think that talking about what you love and why that is something that you love and what love is, talking about and expressing what rage is, can help you to potentially shift from that place of indifference, right? But sometimes you've got to sit in it. But if you have never had these other conversations, you will probably sit in it for way longer than you need to. So I think it's important to name it, maybe sit in it for a minute, but how do you move from that space, right, is really the question. Anyone else? Any thoughts that are coming up? It doesn't have to be related to this or not, and then we'll go to the next slide. I don't know where we are with time, but
yeah, we'll probably just wrap it up for feedback after this one, since we've been taking quite a bit on these questions. But yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, this is like a cool full circle moment, just because I've been meaning, I have it like on my desk, I've been meaning to read Baldwin, The Fire Next Time. But I think it's interesting to Mariam's point where it's like, this is like a human experience, and I always like, we can't necessarily judge like any other species because we're not like part of it, but I think it's so cool that we have the ability to like feel things and like feel emotions, and it's almost like a disservice to like not talk about it or not address them just because we know that we can feel them and we know that we do. So I think that's interesting.
I love it. I love that you have that book on your list there, or actually literally in your hand. Anyone else? Anyone that we haven't heard from want to, this is a moment where I say get into the double Dutch rope. I don't know if anyone double Dutches anymore, but back in the day, I was not very good at it, but I tried. And when you're jumping, there are two types of jumpers. There's the one that gets in the rope really fast. They like, boom, they're like in and they're flipping and they're doing everything. And then there's me often, who's the one that has to like get the beat. I'm like, takes me a minute. And so I always say I want to give a moment for anyone that needs a beat, needed a moment to process everything, maybe didn't say anything because all of this is hitting them in a different way, for a chance to speak. So is anyone that hasn't said anything that would like to share? Okay, okay. I literally could sit here all night just listening to silence, but I'm not going to do that to folks. You can put it in the chat if you want to. How I would, what I would say and why I wanted to do this, why I chose this topic is that I'm 48 years old. It's taken me a long time in my life to get to the place where I could say that I'm all love with appropriate doses of rage and really name and hone in and accept and claim those things. And it is my hope and wish that everyone can do it sooner than I did. And if you're 16, 17, 18, whatever the age, and you can start thinking about this and talking about this then, when I, at that age, was not allowed to, kind of really couldn't lean into either of the things. What are the things that I really love, and what are the things that really get me angry without there being some reason why I should not? And so I just encourage everyone to be all love with appropriate doses of rage in the spaces that you inhabit, to continue these conversations outside of our near pod. In so doing, do not share the stories of anyone else or what people said, but just like keep talking about these things wherever it is that life finds you. And thanks for having me.
Well, thank you.
Oh, any questions for me? Am I supposed to say that? Any questions for me? Sure, I gave you all questions. Any questions for Verta?
I would just, I know you mentioned that, you know, you didn't always like fully understand like how to balance like love and rage. I would kind of wonder, was there like a turning point in your life when you kind of realized like, it was like kind of like an oh moment, like a wow, when you realized like the importance of both of those together?
Well, like I told you, it was therapy. It was in my 20s, late 20s, and it was that I would get sick a lot. Like I would have stomach things. I was diagnosed with like irritable bowel syndrome. I had like all of these things going on in my life. And the science of this is that I believe that if we don't address emotions, they show up in our bodies in some way. So we can get sick, you can get a stomach ache, you can get an earache, all these things, right? And so it wasn't until I started to just connect all of those dots that it wasn't so much about balance per se, because it's just about riding the wave and naming the wave. So sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low, sometimes it's even, but like just being able to ride that wave and know that it's happening and being able to have the language for it and just to say how it's feeling. So I would say that that was my aha moment. And what happened was in therapy, there's this chart, and I can share it, probably can Google it really quickly. I don't really love the book as much as I love the chart. It's called Nonviolent Communication, and they have this chart, they call it like a feelings wheel or a feelings chart, where it kind of like, it starts with just basic emotions like fear, happiness, sadness, and then it branches out and it kind of gives you definitions for all those, like frustration is I think it like is aligned to fear or something, right? So like when you can say, I feel frustrated, but what is the emotion that's behind it? So that was kind of the aha moment for me. My therapist just said to me, you need to start being able to name all these feelings that you're having and stop bottling it all up, or else your gut is going to be, which is your second brain, as they say. I think that's what they say about your gut. Second brain? Yeah? I don't know. Yeah? Okay. But like, so your stomach's going to bother you and for the rest of your life if you don't deal with these things, because it was just like getting knotted up in there. And so that was my aha moment. I'm going to see if I can find that chart for you all while we're talking. Any other questions? Either that means that I bored you to death, or I was so brilliant and answered everything that you need to know about the universe. No, I'm just joking. It could also just mean it's like 7:30 at night, Verta. Like nobody's saying that.
Well, if there's no more questions for Verta, I guess we can kind of go into like if anyone has any feedback about literally anything. Do you think anything like needed improvement or could be changed, or did you really like something that we did? Do you think we should emphasize more? Just any feedback that you guys have.
I really like this session. When I got the calendar invite and looked at the topic, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to attend. And this session, like the time flew by, because Madison, you were talking about like, oh, we spent quite a bit on the talking, and then I was like, oh, but it's only like 6:10, and then I remembered, oh, we started at 5:30. And so this one, time really flew by, and to me, that's like a good sign that it was a very good discussion.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add to like what Crystal said. Like, this is my first like unplugged conversation with the new format because I wasn't able to go to the Nazis one. But I really, really liked how like we just kind of talked. Like it was very much more like chill, and like I felt like I connected with like people a lot more than just kind of like listening in. And I think there's like also like a lot of value to like the other style that we did. But in terms of like this one, I don't know, it felt very much more like real and authentic and genuine, and I really appreciated that. So I very much enjoyed this talk today.
Yeah.
I also, oh, sorry, you got it, Nora.
I was just gonna say, I think a huge part of it was like the format, but also like the types of questions being asked. Like it's not necessarily something that's like yes or no or like one and done and just move on. Like it felt like we could have stayed on one question and like branched off to other ideas, which is cool.
I was just gonna say I thought this is great. I think that the format has only gotten better over time. I always think it's wonderful to hear from people like Verta, who have so much to share with us in terms of emotional capacity and learning and growth. And I'm super happy that I could remotely join. This was wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys for sharing. Any other feedback? It can be negative too.
I agree with all of that, having been to others, actually having I think I did one, right? I don't remember. Me and Jasana did one, yeah. And when I was talking to you about it, I felt like it is great to be able to generate a conversation, you know what I mean? Instead of just like depositing information. The one thing that I would say to tell for the person presenting, so even like that icebreaker, like making sure I didn't even think about it. I'm like, pictures, I'm like, oh, share this picture, like you can't really upload that. So just making it clear like how I can interact with the thing. And that was just me. It's not like I don't use Zoom like every hour of my life, but being clear, I guess, on ways that we're going to be able to interact. I don't know if I thought you could upload it to Nearpod. So that would just be something. And then I was thinking about what happens when the group gets bigger. Like I loved the size of this. And so is there a size that you want to keep it at? Because this felt intimate. It felt like we were able to have that conversation. Whereas if it gets to like 40 people, can you still feel that way? Or what format is there a way that you want to change the format when the size is a little bit larger? So I don't have an answer per se for that right now. I just thought I was thinking about it when I was doing it. Oh, what if this was a bigger group? What would be other ways? So that was just something to think about.
Okay, so a question for you on that. Do you think it would still be like as valuable if we did the same format and it was just more people and everyone could answer on the discussion board? So maybe like you wouldn't be unmuting and talking as much, but you would still be like inputting everything on the discussion board. Do you think that would still be like, I guess that's a question for everyone as well. Still get a lot of value out of it, or do you think that like the small group really like makes the experience?
I think that yes. I think I tend to, it's just like telling the person, like read questions that are interesting to you. Like I just do that naturally, but you might want to tell whoever is presenting, like questions are going to pop up. You can read the ones that are interesting. You can ask questions of people. Like I think that way, then yes, it's not going to matter what the size is, as long as the person who's presenting, as well as I guess it would be for you, Madison, you could do that as well, right? Like, oh, that's such an interesting question, and like put it out, but like just make it clear that will be the way that you interact with the Nearpod. And is it Nearpod? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Because I'd never used it before, so I wasn't sure like what was going to happen. I think the other thing, and this one, I think you can do it here, is if enough people heart something, then it will show, right? Like 5 people hearted it, and then you'll know the ones that have like a lot of energy. So I think you can say, hey, like if we have a lot of energy around a question or what someone said, we might ask that person to say more, or the presenter will like say some more about that thing. So I do think that it's possible. It's just making sure that you give the tools to the people to make it possible, right? So in the beginning, just saying, hey, like if you heart something, it's going to let us know that there's a lot of energy around that, and we'll talk more about that thing. And then letting the presenter know, say the questions or whatever. Because what I think feels weird sometimes is a lot of dead space of no talking without a purpose for the no talking. Like when you're all typing your answers, no, of course, like, yeah, okay, people are typing answers. But then when they're all up there and nobody's talking, it would be, and if I wasn't reading it, I think it would feel weird, right? Mm-hmm. So you just want to make sure that those moments don't feel awkward for anyone. But I definitely think it could be used. I think it could work with a large group.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, you're right. I really need to emphasize more, like when I'm talking to people about like interacting with the questions and stuff, because that's what made it so special, was you like reading everything off and individually engaging with what people said. By the way, you did a phenomenal job at that. Like I'm gonna start sending this to people, because like that's like this is like exactly how we want them to run, right? Like you were asking, like, well, I want you to talk about that more, and just like it was beautiful.
Hey.
Thank you so much.
I enjoyed it. I love y'all.
Jasmine.
Oh, I didn't hear. Sorry, I cut someone off. What were you saying?
No, it's okay. I was just saying, Jasmine, we miss you too. Miss making invites with you and hearing your beautiful voice.
I put the link to one of the charts. There's so many. So if you just like Google like nonviolent communication, but this is one example of it. It's not all of the other ones, Pinterest is like the first thing that pops up these days. And if you don't have a Pinterest, then you can't see the thing. I'm so mad about that. So I have to get a Pinterest. I don't want to manage a whole nother thing in my life. So anyway, so that's the first one I could find that just kind of gives the list of emotions and kind of like breaks down like what need is being met or not met, and kind of like how to kind of work through that. This has been awesome. I have to bounce. I have I have like 2 other calls tonight, which is crazy. It's a crazy, crazy night. But the next one's really fun. It's about cosplay on Twitch. So I have never done that, but the next time I go someplace that allows it, I will be doing it. I think I might be Thelma as well. So just in case you're wondering. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. I look forward to the next one.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.